Did Trump supporters storm the Capitol? Democrats prepare to remove Trump from office? And has China won the game of empire? This is The Arc with Riccardo Bosi. Riccardo, it's been quite a week, hasn't it?
Good week.
It's good to see you.
And you.
A lot has happened this last 48 hours. We saw the US have a massive rally for Trump. It was the Stop the Steal rally. Trump called upon his followers to descend on Washington, D.C. and express their concerns in a peaceful rally, which he reiterated many times. And he spoke at the rally. There were a lot of speakers that were there. It was civil. However, chaos ensued not long after. Now, there's a lot of confusion out there, and the goal of today's conversation is for me to bring people up to speed on what's happened to date. And next week, I can update you on what happens after that, guys. So what sparked all of this off was, as I've explained many times in past videos, there is a process through counting the votes. It was up to Mike Pence to count the electoral college votes, which are given to him in envelopes from the 50 states that voted electorally. However, the thing that made today especially spicy, or the last 48 hours, is there were 7 states or 6 states that put electors in both for Donald Trump and for Joe Biden, which complicates things because Mike Pence, constitutionally and historically, as we saw with Nixon and Reagan, Mike Pence, as the president of the Senate and the vice president to the presidency, he has the power, many legal experts argue, like Rudy Giuliani, to dismiss ballots, to pick who he's going to count them for, maybe the ones for Trump but not for Biden, or he can put both of them aside and go to the state legislators for clarification, which is something that has been done in the past, and it's something that a lot of people were arguing he could have done. It was very unclear where Mike Pence stood on this. However, any doubts were quickly changed once Mike Pence put this tweet out, a statement, an official statement, where he explained that it is in my considered judgment that my oath to support and defend the Constitution constrains me from claiming unilateral authority to determine which electoral votes should be counted and which should not. A couple minutes after that, Donald Trump said in a tweet, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. The USA demands the truth. It wasn't long after that we saw basically the people descend on the Capitol, Washington, D.C., where these hearings were happening and Mike Pence was having the count in the Senate chamber. This is the first time the US Capitol has actually been breached since it was attacked by the British in 1814 and the White House was burnt down at that time. Mm-hmm. So what did we see? Basically, we saw protesters, and there's a lot of confusion in this, guys. The goal of today is to correct and see if we can work together on the truth. We have this video on Twitter, which hasn't yet been found to be a lie at all, but we can see at the front of the Capitol that police officers are letting these protesters through, these Donald Trump protesters who have moved on the Capitol.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just breached the Capitol again.
It almost looks orchestrated, doesn't it?
It almost does. So what we saw once they got in there, a number of different people were taking footage. This one's from Courtney Holland. She's a certified Twitter user. Got quite a few following, and I trust her opinion. She said that there was an instigator trying to break a window at the Capitol with a chair yesterday. When he ran away, Trump supporters grabbed him and handed him over to the police.
That's not good. That's not what it was. Oh, look, the Trump supporters even grabbed the guy.
She's saying that's not one of ours. Now, look, this is not unusual. This is not the first time we've seen this. We've seen situations where Black Lives Matter protesters have been going on, and there's this great video of a guy smashing bricks on the side of the road so that he could hand them to protesters to throw at the police, throw them at private property, windows, everything.
You also saw the piles of bricks that were actually pre-positioned by police.
Yeah, exactly.
For use by the protesters, by the Antifa.
Exactly. But in this particular case, what happened was a lot of the supporters of the protest there, they actually grabbed this guy and they literally manhandled him and dragged him over to the police, and they arrested him, which was awesome. That was really good. But coming back to this, yes, we did see a lot of protesters push past the barriers once they were opened up, and the people continued to descend on Washington, the capital. And this isn't where Trump was having the rally. This is not where the rally was being held. And so once that ended up happening, we had a situation where the people were very enraged. A lot of people have been wondering who started these protests. Why were they allowed through? Were some of these people Antifa agitators? And I do want to shed a bit of light on that. These are some of the images that we saw. I want to make it absolutely clear that there are definitely a high percentage of Trump supporters in these photos. I'm certain of it. The amount of people that are there it's undeniable how many Trump supporters are there. Honestly, and this is something I want to get to the bottom of. We don't know for sure if this was started by Trump supporters or Antifa agitators at the front, but both are possibilities. What may have happened is Antifa supporters agitated at the front, and then the Trump supporters followed them through the back, and they were led along like sheep. Now, if that's the case, shame on Trump supporters. If that's not the case, and Trump supporters of their own volition went up and there were no Antifa supporters, because that's a lot of people, then shame on the Trump supporters. But either way, we've got a problem here, guys. We've got a serious problem. Once they made it into the building, they almost breached the Senate chamber. There was one cop that was holding them back, and this is the some of the Secret Service there, I think, barricading the door there. Once they got in, they almost even stole the Electoral College votes, but a couple of the staffers had enough intelligence to take the votes with them. There were hard drives that were stolen from many of these officers. And here we've got a couple of Trump supporters in the Senate here taking photos. And you might say these are all Antifa supporters. I wouldn't be so certain. I would not be so certain. This is an example of a guy who I thought originally was a Biden supporter or an Antifa supporter, with horns on his head. Some people on our side, Riccardo, they were saying that, he's got a pedo symbol on his chest. Look, I'm going to be honest, I don't have a lot of patience for the pedo symbol, Illuminati sort of, what do these hidden messages mean? But one of the valid things people brought up was, this is a guy that we've seen in September 20th, 2019. He was at a Black Lives Matter protest. But why was he there? Was he supporting Black Lives Matter or not? It turns out he was a counter-protester against Black Lives Matter. He wasn't supporting them. So there was a lot of misinformation saying that these are Antifa supporters, when in actuality, they're probably not.
Just on that guy, I saw a claim from either his brother or sister that he's an ex-US Marine, he's pro-Trump, he's pro-liberty, he's not part of the Antifa crowd.
Yeah. And also, he on camera, he's talked about QAnon and how he supports it as well. This is another video, and I'm not going to play it, but this is an interview with a guy who said he did enter the Capitol building, and I would describe him as a sheep. He is a Trump supporter, and he was one of the people that followed all of these followers in. Now, I get it. I understand where he's coming from, but this is unacceptable. I don't think a lot of people understand the repercussions of their actions, even if they didn't start it, even if they just followed them in. But this is one of the guys that ended up in the Senate chamber as a Trump supporter. And you can listen to the full 20 or 30-minute interview where he talks about that. So we had all these Trump supporters go in. They all flooded. They occupied the Capitol. They were trashing people that I don't like very much, like Nancy Pelosi's offices and all these senators' offices, which I completely disavow and disagree with. And they were sitting in their chairs. They were just breaking things. And a woman got shot. A lady got shot while she was in there. It was a veteran. This was a Trump supporter veteran. Her name was Ashley Babbitt, who was in the Air Force, and she was a Trump supporter. And she was not doing anything. If you watch the video, it's very sad. I can't play it here because this video will be taken down. But she was there, and she was, I think, shot in the neck or the throat or something. And she died not long after that, unfortunately. There are 3 other people that were also killed on the day, by some by law enforcement, another, I think, by falling. But we're still hearing the reports and the details on this. What was the response to all this? Because once this happened and all of these and the Capitol was cleared, what ended up happening after that? They all came back. The senators all came back and they resumed procedures, and they used the time because they were in the middle of debating Arizona at the time, because the Republicans raised objections and they could have a 2-hour debate for each state where objections are raised. In order to raise an objection, you need 1 House member at least and 1 senator at least in writing to beforehand put their request in. And once that happened, we had a situation where the Democrats used their time and the establishment Republicans used their time to lambast the Trump and Trump supporters. And this is where things started to go horribly wrong, for sure. Ilhan Omar then came out and said, "I'm drawing up articles of impeachment. Donald J. Trump should be impeached by the House of Representatives and removed from office by the United States Senate. We cannot allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we need to fulfill our oath." And we have a number of people who have been drawing up articles of impeachment, including a number of different names, some of which include Ilhan Omar, as I just stated. Others also include Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And it's not good, guys. It's not good. This is what deterioration looks like. It's really disgusting, and I think that the important part is that we recognize that there are going to be repercussions for this, and it's not going to be great. Once these events happened, Donald Trump tried to calm everyone down. On Twitter, he put 3 posts out calming everyone, saying, "These are the things and the events that happened when a sacred landslide election is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever." And then we've got Jack Murphy, who I listen to. He was saying that today is Q's fault, and he's obviously touching on how a lot of Trump supporters follow Q and the theories of Q, and they definitely, I think he's making the point that a lot of people probably breached that place by having in mind a lot of the words of and the theories of Q, and it might have stoked a bit of fear and anger, hence why they stormed the barricades. This is something I did want to touch on. Paul Sperry said that a former FBI agent on the ground at the US Capitol just texted me and confirmed that at least 1 busload of Antifa thugs infiltrated peaceful Trump demonstrators as part of a false flag, Trump false flag op. Now, I don't know if this is true, but the point of all this is we need more information on what started this at the front of the protest. We simply don't know. Once all of this happened, a lot of people were lambasting Trump, saying he's not telling people to calm down. He's not telling people, he stoked these fears, it's his fault. As a result, we saw a flurry of Trump bans on social media. Twitter said that as a result of unprecedented and ongoing violent situation in Washington, D.C., we've required the removal of 3 Donald Trump tweets, some of which I read out. Tweets that were posted earlier for repeated and severe violations of our civic integrity policy. Trump was also banned from Facebook for 24 hours and from Twitter for 12 hours. Trump has also been banned from Instagram and Facebook for the remainder of his presidency. Moving on, we saw a Congressman, Cori Bush, Democrat. She came out and said, "I believe the Republican members of Congress who have incited this domestic terror attack through their attempts to overturn the election must face consequences. They have broken their sacred oaths of office. I will be introducing a resolution calling for their expulsion." And you will notice that this is dated January 5th, not January 6th. Isn't that fascinating? This is, guys, as you know, I know we're on Australian time, but even if you take that into consideration, she drafted this the day before all of these events because she always intended on using this.
Once again, it almost seems like it was orchestrated.
And this,
but I'm just a simple soldier.
Exactly. And this isn't the first time this has happened. The first time Trump, I think, nominated someone for the Supreme Court, or the second time with Brett Kavanaugh, there was a DNC statement put out straight away. And the problem was, in the statement, they didn't change the date. And they didn't put in the name of the nominee. They just said, "We oppose the nominee." So this is, and that was from Nancy Pelosi's office. So this isn't something that we haven't seen before. So this started some terrible momentum against Trump because a lot of these, they were going through the states, seeing which ones they were willing to oppose. And the US Congress, they require, as I said before, a member of the House and a member of the Senate to oppose in writing before these proceedings. And a lot of the senators dropped out. And because of what happened. I mean, Loeffler, she ran in the Senate in Georgia. She lost her election in Georgia. Even she dropped out. She was willing to do it before, but after they stormed the Capitol, she changed her mind. And it didn't end up happening. Pennsylvania was meant to be challenged, and it was challenged. Arizona was also challenged. However, there were 5 other states which should have been challenged, which would have been challenged, where senators had signed on and House members had signed on. However, they didn't. For example, Wisconsin had 71 congressmen and women object to their vote. However, they no longer had a senator backing them at that point. As a result, they couldn't challenge Wisconsin. This happened with a few other states, like with Nevada, like with Georgia, like with Michigan.
Sounds like they were given a plausible excuse to withdraw from their intended action.
Exactly. And not have as much backlash as they might think.
Correct.
Now, this is another protester that we saw in there. I don't know where he stands. I don't know if he's an Antifa guy, but he's clearly there at a Black Lives Matter protest. Now, this might be a similar situation with the other guy. Maybe he's counter-protesting. Maybe he's just covering it. We don't know. But we need more information, and that's the point of this. I put out this video of this guy on my Facebook and social media accounts. This is a video from early December, where he points out that there's 4 Antifa buses that were escorted by police and dropped off at the front of a protest. This did not happen in Washington. This did not happen in January. This is fake news, and I've already apologized for putting it out there. I corrected the statement. I wish the media did the same with similar situations. We then had the media around the world start to cover this. 4 dead after Trump protesters storm Washington. And don't you just love that photo with the little halo around Biden's head? Now, what's the effect of all this? Where do we go from here? Well, the vote in the Senate ended up failing. They had their debate on Pennsylvania. There were some great senators that came through, like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley as well, who he challenged Pennsylvania, even after all of this went down. And they had their 2-hour debate, and Congress hated him for it, yet he did it anyway. And unfortunately, it didn't go through. Another great name, Madison Cawthorn. You know, he fought tooth and nail. He's the youngest member of Congress there. He's 24, soon to be 25 there. He's in a wheelchair. And he said, "I failed you. I'm sorry. I could not stop the bastardization of our Constitution. The strike force that is myself, Charlie Kirk, James O'Keefe, Benny Johnson, Lauren Beaumont and Matt Gaetz will fight to stop this from happening again. And I would say that Matt Gaetz is probably one of the few people who actually had something good, some encouraging words and really stuck to the establishment during the time that he was given.
And I don't know if the reports are true, but the Washington Times has just reported some pretty compelling evidence from a facial recognition company showing that some of the people who breached the Capitol today were not Trump supporters. They were masquerading as Trump supporters and, in fact, were members of the violent terrorist group Antifa. Now, we should seek to build America up, not tear her down and destroy her. And I am sure glad that at least for one day, I didn't hear my Democrat colleagues calling to defund the police.
It's exactly right. Every single speech opened yesterday with, I want to thank the Capitol Hill Police. Well, you might want to thank the Capitol Hill Police, but then why are you calling for massive defunding of police in urban cities across the country? Congressman Matt Gaetz deserves our credit. He is one of the good guys. The certification for Pennsylvania came through.
Matt Gaetz is certainly someone to keep an eye on in the coming years, but I did want to just highlight some of the people that have been talking on this. Now, what did this cost? What did this stop? Well, there are a bunch of really good things that were happening, but this has cost quite a lot. There were things still going on at the time, still fights to be had, that were all jeopardized. And Charlie Kirk covered this very well in his 15-hour podcast that he covered the whole day through.
4 people died yesterday that didn't need to die. And it also completely defeated all of the election integrity arguments that we had. You want to know what happened yesterday because things got violent? All of the progress that my friends had made at the Armistead Project to get state legislatures to they were so close to decertifying yesterday. You knew this, right? No, probably, maybe not. Arizona, Wisconsin, they were close to decertifying. You know, none of them are now going to decertify. You know why? Because of what happened yesterday in the Capitol. They got scared. All of a sudden, you go to violence like this, you lose everybody. All of our arguments around voter fraud, all of it, basically lost in the eyes of public opinion. And so we were never really able to make our case yesterday, one that could have had generational impact on actually improving elections and maybe actually giving the president of the Senate a path to send this back down to the state legislatures.
So we've got to deal with the reality, guys, of exactly what's happened, what's going to happen, and where this leaves things. If nothing else changes from this point, it seems as though Joe Biden is going to be the president-elect he's going to be the president as of January 20th. What does that mean? That means that he's going to have a supermajority. It means the House of Congress is completely his. The Senate, he will have a majority because they lost the election in Georgia. You had some people saying not to get out and vote in Georgia. So Kamala Harris will be the tie-breaking vote. He's won the presidency. He will stack the Supreme Court with the Senate that he now has, and he'll add 6 more Supreme Court members, maybe more. Maybe he'll add 50 so that he can beat the Republican majority there, which is at 6-3 right now. He's going to crack down on free speech using the Patriot Act, which is something which targeted thousands of journalists under the Obama presidency. They're going to add more states, Washington, and maybe a few others, to give them more senators and to give them electoral college votes, like in Washington. That's 2 more senators. And they're going to resume all these foreign wars that I've warned about in the past, and they will start new ones. And this is Charlie Kirk again putting this into perspective.
This is a question we've gotten a lot. Charlie, you say there's no constitutional option left for us. How does the Insurrection Act fall into all of this? Is it applicable? Do you believe there is no legal law and order path to exposing voter fraud and taking back our country? What about Executive Order 13848? I could tell you the president, according to all my conversations and things that I could tell you, has absolutely no plans to sign the Insurrection Act or use the executive order mentioned right there. So I'm talking to actual human beings that are in involved in this and not just speculation of message boards of people that wish they were involved in this. So in some ways, today is not my favorite show to do because I feel as if I have to tell a loved one that a loved one has passed away, because I'm saying that metaphorically, but I'm trying to just tell people right now that now we have to plan, we have to move forward. So what do we do? Okay, let's say that in 13 days, absent a God-sized miracle, Joe Biden becomes president of the United States. We'll have the United States Senate because conservatives did not show up in big numbers in Georgia because they were told not to vote. And then we have Pelosi as the Speaker of the House with a thin margin. One of the first things they're going to try to do is statehood for Washington, D.C. Do we have tape on that? Were we able to pull that tape? They're already calling for statehood for Washington, D.C. And so...
And that's not good. That's not good at all, guys. I'm a little bit worried about that. That's going to be very interesting. Why do we concern ourselves with what's going on over there? Because if they crack down on internet free speech, that means my channel's got to completely disappear from the main channels we're on right now. So we're going to have to diversify them. That's okay. It means we need to diversify and protect ourselves, but it does make things a lot more difficult. So what's going to happen from here? Well, it's what I've been warning of. It's been the purge, the slow purge, which we've been seeing over the last 5 years, is going to greatly accelerate. And they're going to start with Donald J. Trump. Even though he came out and he said that in this statement, even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nonetheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. I have always said that we would continue our fight to ensure that only legal votes were counted. While this represents the end of the greatest first term in presidential history, it's only the beginning of our fight to make America great again. And that was, he couldn't tweet that out because he's obviously been censored, but I think his deputy chief of staff came out and did that. So what have we seen from the Democrats? We saw Ted Cruz come out and he said, we need unity, we need to bring the country together. We all agree that this hateful attack was terrible. I know.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep it together. Keep going.
That's all right. However, we've seen from the do-nothing Republicans, the rhinos, like those at the Lincoln Project, basically go after revenge. They said this is the seditious caucus, the 8 senators who voted tonight to throw out the will of the American people. Ted Cruz, I forgot his first name. So you've got Ted Cruz, you've got Hawley, you've got Senator Hyde Smith, Senator Marshall, Senator John Kennedy, you've got Tuberville, you've got Senator Rick Scott, and you've got Cynthia Loomis. These are the names of the people who were fighting to actually get the votes overturned. They were debating, they did have the facts, yet we had a situation where it didn't go through. So we've got this massive backlash that's happening. Snapchat also shut down Trump's account. We also had Trump's organization Shopify also get shut down by the organization that hosts that website. We also had YouTube, which announced, and this is the crackdown on censorship, we had YouTube, which announced that due to the events of yesterday at the Capitol, they're moving up the timeline on election-related misinformation, removals from the 20th to today. So instead of doing that when inauguration happens, they're going to do that from now. So I can no longer talk about election irregularities. These videos claiming widespread fraud or error will end up in a strike and they will be removed from YouTube. That's a pretty dire view on what's going on, but it gets even worse. ABC News reported that even aside from the impeachment and the 25th Amendment talks to remove Trump, and sorry, let me just give you some context, guys. Why are they trying to impeach Trump? Why are they trying to remove Trump? For stoking fear and whatever? It's because if they remove him through the Senate and they reckon they have the numbers, then he can't run again. That's the point. Even though there's only 12 days left or so. However, because of that, they're saying that's not enough. It's not enough if we remove him. The tough part will be, and I quote, cleansing the movement he commands or getting rid of what he represents to so many Americans is going to be something else. They are going to come after the people that funded Trump. They're going to go after Trump so he can't have a bank account. They're going to go after his supporters and his enablers, as they call it. And, we're going to get caught in the crossfire, be under no illusions. And this is going to be crazy. This is going to be absolutely insane. And a lot of Democrats are pushing for it. They're not pushing for unity. In fact, you've even got some people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when Senator Ted Cruz came out and said, we need to calm down, we need to bring this to a peaceful resolution. AOC said, Senator Cruz, you must accept responsibility for how your craven self-serving actions contributed to the death of 4 people yesterday and how you fundraised off of this riot. Both you and Senator Hawley must resign. If you do not, the Senate should move for your expulsion. So that's where we're at, guys. It's not looking great. I've got no more photos for you because that's what brings you up to date to now. It's pretty dire. I'm sure to put it mildly, Riccardo. It's pretty dire. And going forward, as was said before, there really are no options left for Trump except for the fact that some people are saying he could do the Insurrection Act. Charlie Kirk thinks it's highly unlikely. I mean, he's got, Trump's chief of staff, he's a text away and he knows it's not going to happen. This morning, Trump came out and he didn't have a statement. He put his Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, out to do a written statement, and she didn't take questions. It's not looking great. So despite the fact that a lot of people like Linwood are claiming that Trump's in Texas and he's hiding and this and that, and he's got a secret plan and he's going to turn it around, I don't think it's possible. I think we've got to deal with the reality. But Riccardo, I am curious to let you in, and thank you for the massive monologue.
No, that's right. My pleasure. Sorry, I lost it halfway through. The fat lady hasn't sung yet. See, in any fight, whether it's a punch-up in a pub or 2 armies fighting each other, the loser is the one that decides they've lost. It's at that moment, because very few battles go to the death. At some point, people run, and everyone's running too soon. Final bell hasn't rung. The battle's not done yet, guys, please. And there's so many things shooting through my head, so let's get this as systematically as possible. First of all, the lie that the storming of the Capitol building has negated the last 4 years on both sides is complete rubbish. Think about what Trump has achieved in 4 years. Peace in the Middle East. Yeah, and everything else that he's done, okay? So that doesn't disappear. Think of all the lies and nonsense that the other side have been perpetrating against everybody, Trump and us. That doesn't go away just because now, as I said, plausible deniability. If I had to think like Trump, I'd be saying, okay, I can drop the hammer on these people, but I've still got too many traitors in the system. Cruz being number one. He's never trusted him. And Pence got an envelope at Bush's funeral. So do you think he's so dumb as to just keep cruising through? Or is he going to wait until the last possible minute and then allow these traitors to reveal themselves? With all that Trump has achieved, do you think he's going to leave it up to Pence to save his skin or some traitorous senators? Of course not. He's not that silly. And neither are the people behind him. And remember, this isn't a one-man show. There's Trump, there's his supporters, and there's this massive organisation behind him that's pulling this together, because I don't care how clever you are, no one person can do this. And so the storming of the Capitol building looked set up because I believe it was set up. Were some Trump people involved? Doesn't matter. It doesn't change the last 4 years. See, they want you to believe that everything has changed because some lunatics ran into the Capitol building. Give me a break. Grow up, please, seriously. This is a war to the death. This nonsense about an honourable surrender, forget it, not going to happen. And Trump, in my mind, had to squeeze the last scum out of the sponge. And he allowed this to occur in order to do that. And Cruz and all the others. Pence, we know, has been bent for ages. He kept Pence on side because he was the Bush's insurance policy. But all these others who came out, he needed them to reveal themselves to the people. Now, he's got options. He's got the Insurrection Act. He's met the criteria. He's got the Insurrection Act. He's met the criteria of telling them to get out. There's a whole thread on that you can follow up. So they're there. Whether he's using it or not is not the point. But what you've got to understand, guys, in a fight, you don't quit just because it looks bad. It's not over yet. January 20 is the day. And is there going to be an orderly transition? Of course there is, because Trump's going to be transitioning to Trump. Now, even if that doesn't happen, you can bet your bottom dollar shortly after that, there's going to be a parade of politicians being hauled before tribunals of various sorts and courts, and the truth's going to come out. This hasn't lost. We've lost nothing. This is brilliant. This is the last stroke. And I've been watching the Big Don for a long time now, watching and learning how he does what he does. And so this was completely expected. As you saw the assault on the Capitol building, it looked facilitated. The DC cops are bent, we know that. They feed them through, they allowed it to happen. Now, whether it was Antifa or cranky Trump supporters, changes nothing. What, all of a sudden you've gone into Congress and, I'm so heartbroken, Ted Cruz, my God, give me a break, grow up. This is not it. You're being played, and if you want to, even Charlie Kirk, he's not God. Give me a break. He's just a guy with a few contacts and an opinion. And do you really think that Trump is going to tell Charlie Kirk and telegraph his actions?
That's a good point.
Give me a break. As I said, it's like giving the names and addresses of the spies in Berlin to Sergeant Smith who's storming the beach at Normandy. Please. So, the fat lady hasn't sung. It ain't over. Trump's going to be the president. Bet your bottom dollar. I wish I had a lazy $1,000. I'd throw another $1,000 right now on Trump being the president again. It's fine. Relax. Take a deep breath. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid and stop believing the lies. See, I've lived and worked with genuine sociopaths, and I've called it an illuminating experience, and it is. But once you learn how they work, it's brilliant. Everything they accuse you of, they are doing themselves. Everything's a setup from start to finish. Stop watching mainstream media. Stop watching the commentators and the pundits. Forget it. Make your own mind up. Watch what's going on. You have to be intelligent enough to read it for yourself and make your own mind. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. We're in great shape. Now, let's just make a point. Let's say Trump isn't the president. I don't think that for a moment. I think he's going to be the president. I have no doubt about it. But let's just, because a good planner always anticipates, hopes for the best, but plans for the worst. Let's say Biden is the president. Here's a good lesson for Australia and Australia One. As I said all along, never predicate your success on somebody else's actions. You do what you got to do, regardless of whether people come and go. And now we were talking about this earlier. Joel was asking about my publisher, and I was talking about the next book that's coming out. It should have been done by now, but I've been too busy. But there's another book coming out, and the publisher's keen to go. And he said, what if the publisher drops out because the pressure on him becomes too great? You know, the political pressure or whatever. Yeah. And I just looked at Joel and said, what do you want me to do? Stop? Cry?
Yeah, why not?
Give me a break. Let's say something happens to this show.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, nothing malicious, but just it stops.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop? No, it doesn't matter. See, this is your classic moment. You know who you are, you know where you're going, and you're going to move forward regardless of anybody around you. Right. You've got to back yourself. So imagine this. Imagine A1 fell over. The thousands and thousands of supporters around the country leave. They're not going to. If the messages I get are any indication, that ain't happening. But just say they did. And you know, Joel left, and the publisher left, and I'm sit there, I'm a Pat Malone. Do you think I'm going to stop for a second? I won't even be sad. I won't even be surprised. I'll just say, great, no problem, moving right along. That's how this works. That's how the world works. This is the only way you get stuff done. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Now, what changes if Biden gets in is Biden's a lunatic, Biden's a pedophile. We know that he's protected by pedophiles. The pedophiles in Australia are protected by pedophiles in the government, in the judiciary, and in the constabulary. We know that. We know that. There's plenty of evidence of that. So what it means for us is, and as you've heard me say 100 times before, we're planning this operation as if we are by ourselves.
Yep.
To the extent where I'm planning this operation like I'm by myself. Imagine everybody peeled off. You won't see me pause for a second. Not 1 second. I say, thanks very much, moving right along. We've had, through the executive, we've lost, let's say is a nice word, 8 people out of the executive, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I didn't stop for a second. Now, did we lose capacity? Yes. Don't care. Moving on. That's what you got to do. That's what we're going to do. Now, having said that, Trump's still in. Trump will be the next president. How is entirely up to him. Why would Steve Mnuchin be in Israel discussing issues as late as 48 hours ago if there wasn't something going on? It's misdirection, folks. It's misdirection. Look at over here, and they're doing something with the other hand. Pay attention. Follow your own instinct. Follow your own gut. Trust your own assessment. So, no, we're in great shape. Trump's in great shape. He will be the president. You don't achieve what he's achieved in that time frame in such a short period. The most insoluble problems, North Korea, peace in the Middle East. This reminds me of Barack Obama's famous statement, what are you going to do to create jobs? Wave your magic wand?
Yeah.
And there's Donald saying, hold my Diet Coke, and bingo, what happens? The economy's through the roof again, just because you're told it can't be done doesn't mean it can't be done. It's been done. It can be done. Of course it can be done. So no, I'm not the least bit concerned. The fat lady hasn't sung yet. Watch this space. The 20th will be interesting. And even if it doesn't happen on the 20th, watch very shortly after that, because my assessment, he had to squeeze the last bit of scum out of the sponge. And this was the perfect opportunity. They were given plausible deniability. In the business, it's called plausible deniability. Oh, I can't do it. Oh, poor Ted Cruz and all the others. That's terrible. The Congress was stormed. I'll grow a pair of stones, please.
Yeah. Does that mean that let's assume for a second though that Biden actually ends up winning?
Yeah.
How does the plan for A1 change in terms of acceleration or anything like that?
Oh, it'll be slower. We're going to enter. If they maintain control of the US, and as I said before, they don't want to control the US, they need to destroy the US. That's the goal, destroy the US. It is the bulwark against everything that's nasty. Now, within the US, there's a lot of nasty stuff going on because they've penetrated the US. But we don't stop.
Yeah.
We don't stop at all. It just gets a bit longer, nastier, dirtier. We'll transition from what we're doing to something else.
Yeah.
We know we've got an unconstitutional government. Scott Morrison has no more right to sit in the Prime Minister's chair than my cat. Literally. It's unconstitutional. He has no lawful right to be there. The laws the government is passing are unlawful. The orders the directions being meted out by the police are unlawful. So we don't have to follow them. We do out of courtesy because we need to get things done, and that's about it. I've said it before. Everybody in Canberra knows it. It's all unlawful. Yeah. So if Biden gets in and the hammer comes down hard, we don't stop.
Yeah.
See, this is where history is useful. If you read enough battles, and here's a question for all of you. And I think I've asked it before, but I'll do it again. Is history the history of peace punctuated by the odd war, or is it the history of war punctuated by the odd period of peace? Because we're constantly in this position of peaceful competition, increasing tension, conflict, decreasing tension, peaceful competition. We're never at peace. It's always competitive. You think spies take a day off as soon as the war's ended? No. Because during a period of conflict, overt military force makes the major contribution. During a period of peace, what do you think's making the major contribution to this continuation of politics by the means, as Clausewitz called it? The spies, they're working 24/7. We know China has bought just about every politician in Australia. They didn't wait for war. They've been at war with us. They just didn't do us the courtesy of telling us this. So we're at war with China. We're at war with the Islamist countries. They've been buying us out and we've been sold out by our politicians. We know that. None of this has changed. The fact that Biden gets in, let's say he gets in, it's just going to make it more difficult, more challenging. We're still going to win. The nature of the battle might change, metaphorically, but we're still going to win. At no point are we going to throw our hands up. Now, not everybody's fit for the fight. I get that. And I keep telling people, I told people on the Queensland tour, Australia 1 is not for everybody. It really isn't. This isn't give us your $100 and you remember. No. Working with Children's Check, no dual nationality, and you've got to be ready to fight. This is a unique organisation, and not everybody, we don't want everybody, and not everybody is fit for our organisation. We don't want pedophiles, unlike the Liberal, Labor, Nationals and Greens who protect them.
And that's why you have police checks.
What we demand of our people will be more than anything that's ever been asked of them. They have to become someone they've never been before. They have to do things they've never done before. Now, we're going to help them. But this is a kumbaya moment where I hold your hand and we bounce through the lily field together.
Yeah.
Step up and deliver or go away. It's just going to be tougher, but we're still going to fight. We're still going to win.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of the words of Rocky Balboa, because you get a lot of people giving up right now. It's been a rough 24 hours, hasn't it?
Oh, man, if you've got the tape, roll it.
Absolutely. No, let's go for it.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life.
And that's what I say at the talks. They have to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
This isn't the Rick Bosi show.
No.
This has got to be thousands and thousands and thousands of Australians standing up saying, I'm ready to do this for me and my family and my country. And it doesn't matter whether somebody else is running the show. I'm going to look after my family, I'm looking after my electorate, I'm looking after my state, and I'm looking after my country. And that's how the military works. See, we've got this chain of command. So if the boss gets taken out, the number 2 takes over. Number 2 gets taken out, number 3 takes over. It's not like in the movies where people run around in a panic saying, oh my God, what do we do now? Unlike headquarters ADF and Angus and his asinine mates, we know what's got to be done. We have a succession plan.
Yep.
So if I get whacked, it's not a problem, folks. We just keep moving forward.
That's right.
That's what we got to do, and that's what we will do.
Excellent. Well, funnily enough, after what happened in the US, we had an update in Australia. Vaccines to begin February in very suspicious timing. Scott Morrison announces 80,000 vaccinations per week, and 4 million people should be vaccinated by the end of March. What do you think, Riccardo?
Oh, man, Scotty Morrison. How can I put this politely? When the truth comes out, there's going to be a lot of politicians, judges, lawyers, and bureaucrats facing tribunals of their own. This is a crime against the nation. This man put nearly, $700 million into a vaccine that scored 3 out of 7 out of Queensland. And I think I said it before, but for those who are just catching up, you need to score 4 out of 7 out of peer reviews and have produced a vaccine before you get that level of funding. And somehow $750 million goes into this dodgy vaccine, and now it's going into another one. And we're not supposed to ask why. We're not supposed to say where the money went. This is a crime against humanity. This is a crime against the Australian people. This is treason at its worst level. And everybody that's participating in this will be held to account. Now, we know that the test doesn't test for COVID. We know that. The designer of the test, the CPR test, CPR? CRP, whatever.
Yeah, CPR.
CPR
They're
test.
Rubbish. Even though
we know the test is bogus, and yet this imbecile and his mates in the States are rolling it out. The test is meaningless. We know that. We know that the numbers are so pathetically small that it isn't threat. We know that heart attacks and flu have just evaporated. We know it's a lie. He knows it's a lie. Everybody knows it's a lie. And yet he's going to poison 4 million people by the end of March.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Well, I tell you what, folks, I'm doing all I can. Joel's doing all he can do. But until you wake up and until you realise you're being played and until you are willing to fight, then this is going to happen.
Yeah.
You've seen the results with the vaccines overseas. Bell's palsy. There have been deaths. There's any number of testimonies from people who have taken the vaccine and are begging you not to take it. Now, for those who believe in vaccines, great. But you should be able to demand proof that it is both safe and effective. There is no proof that it is safe and effective. None. There is no proof. But you should be, since the government's backing this, they should be telling you, giving you hard evidence that it is safe and effective, and they can do neither. And we've given you a chapter on verse in what's included in the vaccines. So once again, folks, if you take the vaccine and you have your kids get the vaccine, it's on you. You have to grow up. It's time to stand up, grow up, and realise that you have to make a decision for yourself. And why in God's name would you believe a man that protects pedophiles? Why should you believe him on vaccines when this same guy and his parliamentary colleagues in the Liberal Party and the Labor Party and the Nationals and the Greens, every one of them, is silent on the 90-year suppression order on 28 VIP pedophiles? Why should you trust him? It doesn't make sense. If this guy was trustworthy, you'd go, yeah, okay, I trust Scotty from marketing. But this is slow-mo. This is the guy that protects pedophiles. And one more time, how many kids have to be raped and killed? Now, just to put some context on this, there was a brutal pedophile in Queensland who gave a mentally disabled child autism drugs until they couldn't respond, and then brutally raped this young girl for years. Eventually, he was found out when she was 11. Now, he was sentenced to 3 years jail and he was out in 2. Now, what does that tell you about every politician in this country and every judge in this country about the laws that are written to protect pedophiles by politicians and the laws that are applied by judges to protect pedophiles? Why the should you trust Scott Morrison and any politician on vaccines when they are protecting pedophiles? You don't have to be Einstein to figure it out, folks. For God's sake, wake up to yourselves. Wake up.
The evidence is all there. The thing with the vaccines is it's not like this is the first vaccine we've had. We know what happens. We know what happens with autism. We know what happens with the level of... We know how long it takes to do a vaccine. The quickest vaccine that's been developed is 7 years. This one has been done in a few months. Why do you trust this one more than the shortest one that's been done in 7 years?
And every state premier, and here's the premier of WA, the guy who is attainted of treason because he's removed the Queen from the processes. And I don't care whether you're a monarchist, it's not the point. It's not his job to remove the Queen and have the governor just sign documents on his own recognizance. Mark McGowan, WA Premier, he's loved. Now, I know WA is an isolationist state and they believe they should be their own, but for God's sake, people, this is the same guy that in 2016 passed the legislation that allows the cops to strip your children naked and forcibly inject them with the vaccine when there was no requirement to do so. I said it before. What occurred? What event occurred that required that legislative response? The answer is nothing. This is planned. That's why they call it a plandemic. For God's sake, the sand gropers, you need to wake up. You've got a state election in March. And if he gets back in, I'm sorry, but you deserve what you get. You really do. And I feel sorry for your kids because you're too stupid to wake up and realise you're being lied to. Now, it's not wise to insult the electorate. But you know what? If you re-elect that imbecile, that jerk that is attainted of treason in WA, I'm sorry, folks, but there's only so much that the rest of us can do. You can't even pick a decent premier and you want to be your own country? Time to grow up, kids. You really need to grow up.
They will elect him again. Just like with Queensland, it's going to be the same thing. Crises always work to re-elect the incumbents, except in Donald Trump's case, which is the only case in 2020, which is unusual. That's another bellwether metric that was defied, and that's why none of this makes any sense. Yet it works when it's the establishment that's in control. And this isn't the first thing that's come out that's just been utterly ridiculous. I mean, we've seen a ton of things. Did you hear about in New South Wales, or I think it was the federal government, where they came out and they said you can't have... They encouraged the people to have sexual intercourse by self-pleasing yourself while looking at your partner and social distancing with a mask on. Did you hear that? It's utterly disgusting. Like, we hear from the left, my body, my choice, this is a same-sex couple, you shouldn't be interfering in whether they have intercourse or not, yet they want to come into the bedroom and tell you what to do. Like, at what point do you realize these people have lost their marbles, guys? Seriously, getting between you and your wife. Where are all the young 20-year-olds that protest climate change protesting against this? Sheer insanity, honestly.
Oh, they're doing it. The reason they're telling you how to have sex is they're just pushing the boundary. These are sociopaths. They love to control. See, when you get the sociopathic pedophiles, for example, it's not even about raping kids. It's about control. And some of them actually go through that in order to watch the face of the parents when they realise they've been betrayed. That's how sick they are. But they just like to push. They push, how far can we go, how far can we go? They'll just keep going until you tell them to stop. Yeah. That's what they want. That's what they're up to.
Completely disgusting. And on the topic of the vaccines, and guys, we're probably going to be taken off for these vaccine talks. I can't actually put in the title, this is a vaccine talk, but on the topic, Singapore has halted their use of the flu vaccines after 48 died in South Korea. Isn't that just brilliant? And
I didn't know that. 48 have died in South Korea.
Seems that way, yeah. I mean, I need to. You can always double check this, but this is from the Telegraph. Look, this is some troubling stuff, guys. This is very troubling because we're going down this path where our government officials are going to enforce this vaccine, and they will tell you, I'm not going to enforce it, but as Riccardo said many times, they're going to deny you your right to see your children. They'll take them away from you. They won't let you get your Medicare and your health benefits and your Centrelink benefits. They're going to deny that from you. They're going to deny international travel. It's only for the elites, only for those that have vaccines. This was all going to happen before under climate change. You know, it was going to be too expensive on the climate for you to fly, but it's fine for us to fly. This was all going to happen, guys. But coronavirus accelerated a lot of these things, in my view. This is a real virus. It's a vulnerable virus, but the way the media has been portraying this, it's blown this up, is just to usurp power. And I'm completely opposed to it. And there's a lot of Liberal MPs who have been saying to me privately, do not take this vaccine. You must not take it, okay? And they'll lose their jobs if they were to.
Everybody watching, spread this to everybody. Just send no forced vax. No forced vax. That's it. It's all you got to do. No forced vax. If you want the vax, no problem. But demand evidence that it is safe and effective. But spread the word. No forced vax. That's right. You have to push back. Now, if we can get Slow-Mo and his pedophile protecting mates in Canberra to slow the to delay the enforced vaccination, great. But the only way they all do it is if you speak up. 100 isn't going to do it. Forget about petitions. Flood them. Go to their office, get a video with a poster that says no forced vax, and keep doing it. They are terrified. They are pathetic. They are weak.
Yep.
Squeeze them till their eyes pop. I said it last week. Just get out there. But unless you do, folks, you will see thousands of deaths, and it won't be due to COVID.
Yeah.
You will see thousands of deaths. And they'll create the thousands of deaths and blame COVID. Because they're going to lie to you. They're going to lie. All of a sudden, people will start dying. Yeah. And they'll say, oh, it wasn't the vaccine. No. It wasn't that. It was COVID what done it.
Yeah. Your prediction was, and this was back in early last year, just before the Eden-Monaro election in June or May, you said, this is what's going to happen. They're going to come out with a vaccine. They're going to make everyone get it. And then once it comes out, you're going to see a big spike because the vaccine will give people the virus.
Check the data. Check the data. Every time a vaccine is issued and people take it, there's a massive increase in deaths. What a shock.
The funny thing about that prediction is it's an admission that the virus exists, which we both agree, but we believe it's a vulnerable virus, you know?
Oh, I don't know if it exists or not. I mean that quite sincerely, and it doesn't really matter.
Okay, yeah.
Because they love you arguing about whether it's in a virus or not a virus, whether the virus is alive or not, whether it's a piece of DNA.
Divide and conquer.
It's not the point. The point is that you will die. You will be killed by your own government. And as you said, I said this a long time ago.
You did.
This is not hard. When you know how the pieces move, it's not hard to predict it. It's a bit like, look, I'm not particularly clever, folks. But imagine if I'm sitting on top of a building and I'm watching the traffic and I can see a car belting down the road at 100 Ks and there's a family crossing the road further down. I can yell out, unless you move, that car's going to hit you. Now, you can't see the car because it's too far away. and you're holding your kids' hands, and you're making sure they're safe as they cross the road. And because I'm just slightly higher up, and I've got the perspective, let's say, and I can see this car careening at you, and I'm yelling out, "Please get out of the way!" Now, if it hits you, folks,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
There's actually nothing we can do. We've done everything we can. I mean, this last year has been very frustrating for me because I've been banging on the drum of big tech censorship, and it all comes full circle. Not only did the progressives discover that it's detrimental because they started suppressing progressive candidates in the last election, but of course the Trump supporters worked it out when they suppressed the Hunter Biden story in the US. And then you had the majority of people that voted that said we didn't know about the Hunter Biden story, and the majority of those people also said we would have changed our vote.
Stop listening to the ABC because they won't tell you.
Yeah.
Don't listen to Paul Whitaker. I made the mistake last week. I called him Sam Whitaker. My mistake. It was Paul Whitaker. Forget Paul Whitaker and his four stooges, Credle and Bolt, Jones and Murray. Forget it. Stop listening to them. They're not going to give you the whole truth. Because that's why they call it the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because what you're getting is partial truth. And as I said, they give you false hope. Stop it. Do your research. Trust yourself.
I'd argue listen to them anyway, because even if they were the most fervent enemies, I still say listen to them, because you need to know how to combat attacks, whether it's your enemy or whether it's controlled opposition.
I understand.
You know what I mean? But be
sure.
informed. But don't be under any illusion, you're saying. Don't treat them as if they're telling you the whole truth.
Personally, I just stopped watching them.
Yeah.
Because it's like fighting on a hill down here and I'm up this hill up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Strategic maneuver. Let them fight over the old hill.
Yeah.
Move fast, move hard, hit them hard, move on.
That's it.
That's what we have to do. Because if we move at their pace, we allow them to set the agenda. We allow them to control the narrative. We're fighting over whether COVID was created in the wet market or whether it was created in a lab.
Yeah.
Irrelevant, folks.
Yeah.
The economy is broken. Your rights have been stripped from you. And we're arguing about that. What lockdown was there in Wuhan, just by the way, over New Year's Eve? Anyone know? None. Did they have empty streets? No. The streets were full of revelers.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
The centre of all of this, no lockdown, celebrating New Year's.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And what were we doing? I don't know if you saw the videos, and people actually put these online.
I saw the photos.
There was a video.
Yeah. I'll display the photo. I've got it.
Okay, there are two separate instances, so we know it wasn't fake. There's a person watching the celebrations in Seattle with the Space Needle, which is one of their major towers there, and it has a light show and fireworks, and it's brilliant. And with the camera still rolling on the phone, this individual walks out to their veranda and takes a live shot of the Space Needle. Nothing. You're being shown a movie. Second example, Golden Gate Bridge, same thing. Light show, fireworks, brilliant.
Yeah.
And without pausing the filming, walks outside, Golden Gate Bridge, darkness. You are being fed lies by Paul Whitaker and his four stooges and every free-to-air channel that we have in this country, as well as the cable ones. It's a movie. They want you to believe the movie.
Yeah.
Folks, you are going to be incandescent with rage.
Yeah.
But you can't say you weren't warned.
That's right.
So you only got yourselves to blame. I'm really sorry, but
we're trying hard. Like, there's not much we can do. Or just not much more we can do. We're doing a lot.
Now, I understand the difficulty in believing this. I get it. Because we've built in our minds, and we do this as we grow as children, we get a model of the world sufficient to understand how it works so we can operate successfully. But as you know, as we grow older, and it's almost like just when you get a handle on how life works, another element of complexity is added to the formula.
Yeah.
And so you have to adapt slightly more and then slightly more. And with every life experience, you get married and all of a sudden life isn't what you thought it was and there are different rules, and all of a sudden you have children and once again. And then, so I understand it. The human mind requires stasis for comfort. It needs certainty. It needs predictability. It needs stillness, no change. And yet life is a series of changes. So I understand why this is hard for you to believe. There's a physiological process at work. That's why the change management industry is so successful.
Yeah.
Because people and organisations have difficulty getting from where they are to where they need to be. Now, if you want to find how to get through this process for yourself, your husband or wife, and more importantly for your kids, Google the hero's journey. Google the hero's journey. It is the basis for every movie you've ever watched. And it is the basis for how you get from where you are to where you need to be after a shock. Now, depending on how clever you are, you can shorten that distance and make the depth shallower. That's what change management is about. Bear with me. I know this sounds terribly boring, but just listen carefully. You're bubbling along, and a change event occurs. Whatever it is, death in the family, new job, promotion, baby birth, doesn't matter, but a change event. And the old world is about to change. Star Wars did this brilliantly. This was the basis of the Star Wars franchise. Then you refuse to accept the truth, and you start degrading in performance because you don't want to accept the new reality. And you cling with white-knuckle grip to the past, but the past is now gone. And then you realise the truth is there, and you let go, and you're in free fall, and you drop. And you're very low, and you don't want to be where you are. Comfort, you want to go back. You want to take the blue pill and go back and eat the steak that you know is not really a steak from the Matrix movie. But you can't go back. And so what you do is you sort of accept it, and depending on you and your support systems and how you understand life, you start to try stuff, and you'll have an insight and be enthused and say, yes, I can make it, but that fails. And then you'll try another insight, and then that fails, and then another insight, and that fails, and another insight, and that fails. And what you're doing is you're constantly facing these challenges to understand your new world. And until you understand it, you'll keep bouncing up and down. But eventually, through a series of trials and errors and experiences and advice from good friends and colleagues, you'll get an insight that has real chance. You start working towards it. And then you get to a point where you realize, you know what, I can really do this. And then you fly. And you find yourself up here. Now, hopefully, up here is higher than where you were previously. Yeah. But this journey is every change you've ever had. Yeah. Google the hero's journey. Watch Star Wars again. Watch all those movies, and you'll realize the hero leaves the village, refuses to meet the challenges, faces a series of challenges, and eventually gets back up there. Now, the best summary of this, the best movie you can watch, and I discovered it by accident, and this is the best piece of advice I'll give you today. It's a movie called Arthur, Legend of the Sword, with Charlie Hunnam.
It's a classic.
Now, one of the greatest films ever made. Unfortunately, it didn't do well because I think people were sorted out by Game of Thrones, which I didn't watch, so I watched this Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Watch the story. It's a brilliant story. And it's made by Guy Ritchie, who's an outstanding storyteller. Background, my guess, Guy Ritchie wrote this for his son to understand his upbringing from his prostitute mother, Madonna. So it's a love letter from a father to a son. That's just my take on it. Now, step back from that. Watch the movie once, because the movie is just breathtaking. The imagery and the allegory are brilliant. The character development, superb. But what you're watching in this whole film is normal life, change event occurs, wants to hang on, can't. Goes through a series of challenges, doesn't want to face the challenge. This is part of the hero's journey. I want to go back. I don't want to face it. I don't want the responsibility. But we have to. Every one of us, if you're a mum or a dad, you have no choice. And there's a great line. Everyone looks away, but that's the difference between a king and the others. A king cannot look away. A king has to face danger. That's what you have to do. So watch this movie, please. Best piece of advice you'll ever get on this show. Arthur, Legend of the Sword, Charlie Hunnam. Buy the DVD, watch it several times, because there is so much. It is so rich with meaning and lesson and allegory. It'll actually empower you in an hour and a half more than any change management seminar will. It'll help you become what you were created to be. Man or woman makes no difference. But as I said, the difference between a king and everybody else, the king doesn't look away. The king has to look at danger and move forward and take that responsibility. Because if you don't, and there's a poignant moment in the film where he considers not taking up the challenge, and what would happen if he doesn't. So I'll leave it there, but please watch it. Arthur, Legend of the Sword, Charlie Hunnam. Yeah. Produced, one of the producers was Steve Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury of the United States.
No, you're kidding.
No, absolutely.
Isn't that funny?
Extraordinary movie. Folks, watch it, get empowered, and get to work.
Yeah, talking about doing noble acts, I ran into this Lockyer guy a few weeks ago. I was complaining the other day that there's no Stephen Crowder in Australia. There's no one really doing the on-the-ground, change my mind stuff, being really brave like in the stories of old. And then I come across this guy. He's doing change my mind, COVID is a scam at Bondi Beach, and he just sits with anyone and has a chat with his table, and he's great. He knows some phenomenal stuff.
10 out of 10. See, that's what we need more of. I mean, pass on my best to Lockie.
Yeah.
Mate, what a champion he is. That's brilliant.
Look, we'll definitely meet Lockie in the near future. So last weekend, he upset all of the latte sipping Bondi people over there, and he ended up bringing all these people, and look at this. This has got 45,000 views on Instagram, and he doesn't have a massive account, by the way, guys. Only 3,000 followers. So this is huge. It really struck a chord with people. And what he did was he was walking around Bondi Junction through the shopping centres, and and he was shouting out, "COVID's a scam." You know, Gladys, stick your mask mandate up your butt in a very in a great way. And he had his speaker and he had his little posse following him, and it was awesome. And I happened to drop in. I thought, you know, if I'm going to cover this event because I know the media is going to do a terrible job, and this is pretty much what it looked like. And there's the police.
Oh, I'd rather be a human than a slave. Oh, I'd rather be a human, but don't you know that you can rather be a human than a slave? You can stick your COVID normal up your ass.
How Australian is that?
You can stick your COVID.
He's sort of wearing what you wore on tour in Queensland, actually. Now that I think about it.
Stick your COVID normal with the sun and the stick your COVID normal up your ass. We are the 99%. Singing, we are the 99%. Singing, we are the 90%. Together we are mighty.
So that got a lot of attention, and meanwhile, what ended up happening while this was happening, there was a social media mobbing that was going on of a business we visited yesterday called Love Crepe. Now, Love Crepe is a company. Last night we released an interview. At the time of filming this, you guys will see this interview by that point. Last night we released an interview of Love Crepe, and we did an interview with them. They copped social media mobbing. What ended up happening at Love Crepe? They said that we're not obligated to wear masks over a hot plate, according to the government officials we've talked to.
Services New South Wales, he rang them up and said, look, I've got guys working over the hot plate.
Yeah.
Do they have to wear it?
Yeah.
Absolutely not, said Services New South Wales.
Exactly. And wasn't there something written down somewhere that concreted that you ended up pulling up in the interview?
No. That was quite separate. No,
so quite separate. But the point was that there was a lot of confusion on this, and this poor business owner, he was copying this massive Instagram social media mobbing, and on Facebook as well. People giving him terrible Google reviews, and
who had never ever been there,
never been there before, not from the area.
As I explained to Nick, a lot of this social media mobbing, this pile-on, is absolutely fabricated. It's not real. But what it does is, if you get a handful of people doing this, everybody else gets scared to stand up, and so it's social media terror. Yeah. Terror is politically motivated violence.
That's right.
And what they're trying to do is they're terrifying people from actually standing up for the bloke.
That's right. And it's the modern version of the French Revolution execution, chopping your head off. This is unpersoning, because this is where you put yourself out there on social media. If you can't have a social media account, and if you can't get a bank account, as we might see with Donald Trump, they're coming after him. They're completely unpersoning him.
And as he said, he's not anti-mask or pro-mask.
That's right. He's not at all.
His primary objective, believe it or not, is to look after his staff. That's his primary concern.
That's right. Yeah, that's a true leader.
And he's trying to help them out. And he wanted clarification from good for nothing Gladys, the baby killer.
Exactly.
And they're giving conflicting instructions. And I raised the point that there's a possibility that it's actually an unlawful direction. Gladys is saying you can't do this. Brad Hazzard, that imbecile of a health minister for New South Wales, he said it's a privilege for us to be free to walk around. A lot of this is unlawful. A Biosecurity Act, under the health section, you cannot force somebody to wear a mask or clothing or control their movements unless they are under a control order. Now, to be under a control order, and this is the federal government legislation, the federal legislation trumps state legislation if it's in the same area. You can't be under a control order unless you as an individual, not as a group, you as an individual have been proven in a court of law to be sick.
Yeah.
And so to make a blanket statement that you all got to mask up because you might, it's unlawful, because you have to prove a pandemic as well. That's another criteria. But you can't prove a pandemic because they haven't got the numbers.
Exactly.
So everything that Scotty for marketing is pushing and everything good for nothing Gladys and the rest of those imbecile state premiers is pushing, by and large, is likely to be absolutely unlawful. Now, folks, go to Advocate Me, and there's a lawyer down there, Serene, and she's doing a brilliant job. Check it out for yourselves. Don't believe me, but once again, if you give your kids the vaccine, remember the car travelling 100 kilometres an hour and you're crossing the road, you can't see it, we can. Please go to Advocate Me, see what Serene in Melbourne is saying about it. She's an absolute champion. She's absolutely heroic.
Now, why am I bringing up this business? Well, we weren't meant to be covering this. Channel 7 and Channel 9 were trying to get a hold of Nick and Love Crepe, which is the business, and he wouldn't talk to them. He asked, through our mutual friend Romeo Georges, he asked Romeo, he said, can you get a hold of Riccardo and Romeo and Joel? I don't trust Channel 9, I don't trust Channel 7, I only want to speak to them to cover this because I can't get the word out and I don't trust the media to film for 2 hours and then only take 2 seconds out of his statements. Because anyone that's watched the report, and you guys have seen it last night, they made it look like the police were knocking on his window, they were coming after him, but he was nowhere to be found, he's an anti-masker. How does that tie in with Lockie, that we just watched a video walking through Bondi Junction? Because Lachlan is a fan of the videos. That's why. And they put that in the report on Channel 7 and Channel 9. And so they're trying to get a hold of Nick, but they couldn't get a hold of the business owner. And because of that, they went to Lockie for a comment. What did Lockie do? He ended up filming, without them knowing, one of the Channel 9 news reporters, and he went back and forth with them. And you guys can see the photo of Lockie having a conversation there. That's on his Instagram. Check it out, Lockie Kavanagh. And I don't know. I'd never name. If you have the last name Kavanagh, I feel like they just come after you. I don't know what it is, but Lockie, you're doing some good work, mate. And as soon as Love Crepe opens up, and I hear that it might be on this Sunday. We're going to get out there and we're going to support you. And the poor guy, he's going to have so much business, he's not going to know what to do. He's going to have to maybe even expand the place because he has plans for that. And you guys can see the video of that right now, the new place he wants to sort of build. But he's got dreams. He's got employers to keep employed and employees. And he's just a business owner that pays his taxes, wants clarification from the government. You know,
it's not too much to ask, is it? It's not too much to ask. So if it is open on Sunday, check it out. Love Crepe in Drummoyne. Go buy a crepe because if it's open on Sunday, Joel and I will be there.
Absolutely.
Come and say hello.
It'd be a great opportunity to meet Riccardo, guys. Trust me. He's got 1,000 emails, 7,000 unread social media messages, hundreds of calls.
If you're trying to get through to me and I haven't responded, I'm not rude, please. It's just extremely time consuming.
It is.
Getting through them. And look, be persistent because I think I got 3 calls in the matter of about 15 minutes. I was doing the shopping at Coles.
Oh, okay.
And the phone just kept ringing and I took them. They said, oh, thank you, you answered. I said, mate, I'm sorry, please. But be persistent. Do your best. Just be patient as well.
Even I can't get a hold of you sometimes. And that's okay because I know you guys, you're running a party, starting from scratch. You basically do everything at home, including the cooking, guys. Like he goes hard. I've had his pasta before. It's awesome. With his wife there who has MS, and then he's got his kids who are being homeschooled as well. Like he's a busy guy, but when he takes your call, he's actually on it for like an hour or so. Like he'll actually give you the attention, but difficult thing to balance when you've got half of Australia trying to get a hold of you.
But love Crepe.
No, we love Crepe. Absolutely.
Love Crepe.
Get to Crepe. If you want to meet him, get to Crepe. Trust me, that's the place.
Lions Road, Drummoyne, I think.
That's it, Drummoyne. So that's been released, and that was really awesome. I did want to touch on just a few other concepts before we call it a wrap for today. I'm conscious of time and these cameras, which I can't wait to get rid of, which are going to give out. But I just want to quickly say part of the fallout, because I love annoying our audience every now and then. Here's the congratulations from Hillary Clinton. She said, congratulations to the new senators from Georgia and to everyone who organized and voted to get them there. It's a new day, Hillary Clinton. Just to rub salt in the wound, there's a photo of her. because of this,
I thought she was dead.
I thought she was too. She disappeared, didn't she? But now she's back.
Okay.
She's like, oh, maybe I actually did win the last presidential election. Poor lady.
Right.
But I also wanted to highlight Vernon Jones, who was a former Democrat. He said moments ago, I announced that I am officially joining the Republican Party. Now more than ever, the Republican Party is in desperate need of leaders that know how to fight. I know how to fight. And this is a guy that's a big proponent of Brexit and the black people leaving the Democrat Party. I fully support this. I think that in America they can reform the Republican Party. People just need to get involved over there. It's a different system, I think. They don't need to start a third party because it's not a parliamentary democracy. And ours is for now. For now. But those were sort of the events that concluded the weekend over there. So John Anderson has a conversation series called Conversations with John Anderson. It's an excellent channel. I've been talking with John for over 2 years now about the channel, and I've supported them where I could, whether that's with big tech censorship. I work with this team a lot to help them get around it a lot, and it's been incredibly pleasurable to do that because they're doing some really good work and touching on topics which they can, and they're making it very mainstream. One of the topics they talk on is the challenge we've got with China, how we need to really make sure our military is up for the fight if world wars were to come around again. And he often reiterates the point, John Anderson, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, reiterates the point that if you want to prepare for war, if you prepare for war, then you'll be preventing it, basically. If you don't want war, prepare for it. If you want war, don't prepare for it. It's as simple as that. John Anderson had a very interesting conversation between Rear Admiral retired Andrew Robertson, and this conversation was my go-to conversation for understanding where things were with the Australian military. Unfortunately, this interview only has 3,500 views, and this was when John Anderson's series was relatively early. I reposted a clip of that interview, and it got 56,000 views, which is excellent. That's what we want to see, and I'll be doing that more. Unfortunately, Andrew Robertson actually passed away mid in 2020, and I had no idea, in July. Andrew was a very solid soldier who was in the Navy, and he was around when the Battle of the Coral Sea was happening as well, which is a very, very significant battle that happened in the Second World War against the Japs. And it was a very pivotal moment that strengthened ties away from the UK, but closer with America. It was very pivotal. Things go so dire at that point in time. Australia was they had a backup plan to, they drew a line across Australia. They were prepared to give the Japs the northern half of Australia, including all of Queensland, Northern Territory, half of Western Australia. They were going to give it all up just if the Japs landed.
If they'd lost the Battle of Coral Sea, then that would have given a seaborne route to Moresby.
Yeah.
From which they could then launch operations against the Australian mainland.
Yeah.
Because the Americans won the Battle of Coral Sea, the Japanese were forced to go over the Kokoda Track, and that's a separate story.
Absolutely, and it's an amazing story, and the fact that the wealth of knowledge this guy, that Andrew Robertson had, I couldn't wait to meet him. I'd seen his interview with John Anderson in early 2019, and I always knew I wanted to meet him, so it's a shame. The reason why it went under my radar was because Black Lives Matter protests were happening, and I had no idea. So I gave my condolences to John and his family, yeah.
Okay, I just popped into my head, Battle of the Coral Sea. It is such a significant, pivotal moment in Australian military history, and yet there isn't a proper memorial to it. There's a small rock, I guess, is the best way to describe it, with a plaque on it, which is maintained by some loyal enthusiasts. And I was actually, this is a bit of a sour story, but let me know, let you know how this works. I was contacted by an American who has strong feelings for Australia. He's in Australia now, but obviously with his home country, and he knew the Battle of Coral Sea, and he generated some interest with some colleagues, and they already put up 7 figures to build an entire memorial to the Battle of Coral Sea with audio, visual, and all sorts of technical shows, a bit like the modern War Memorial down in Canberra now. Not just a rock, but a real experience of what happened and why it's so important. Contacted the Australian War Memorial, and and said, look, I've got a contact here. They've asked me to front this activity. Can you help us out? We want to approach you and cooperate with you in the construction of this. But the money is ready to go. We just need to sit down now, start working out. Well, they were very keen, very briefly. And then inexplicably, the phone calls and emails stopped being replied to. Now, I can't imagine why that was. Because the money's there, all they needed, they've got the enthusiasm. We weren't going to ask the Australian people for a cent, but this multimedia memorial to the Battle of Coral Sea, a pivotal moment in Australian history. The Australian War Memorial wasn't interested. Was it because of the guy fronting the program? And I apologise to the people involved and said, look, I think you got the wrong guy here, because I think I've just pissed too many people off, and they can't do it. They would rather deny the Australian people this gift of history because they're just churlish.
Yeah.
Now, I can't prove that, but my goodness me, that's
so
the quality. That's the quality of the people in Canberra.
Yeah, and for those of you that saying Riccardo's a lying piece of crap that's lying through his teeth about this whole story, there was no one that was willing to put 7 figures down for this memorial. I remember you telling me about this a year and a bit ago.
There you go.
In mid-2019, but I didn't know that the bastards in Canberra didn't follow through with it. Are you
Correct.
serious?
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me? So a Syrian can come to Australia and recognise the military history and recognise and be very angry that a death like a noble man like Andrew Robertson, who was in a very pivotal battle, I can recognise the importance of that. But the idiots in Canberra are that less Australian? Are you serious? Are you kidding me?
They are so spiteful. They are spiteful and nasty, and if they were 5-year-old children, you'd give them a good talking to. You really would.
I won't let you say it, but if it was my parent, they'd be working out which weapon to use. And it wouldn't be the wooden spoon; it might be the belt. It's very.
So sorry to put a sour twist on
no, but it's enraging.
A brave sailors memorial. So
no, but look, you know what? This show is not. That's what this show's all about. We're giving it to people straight. Honestly, this is the. What do you call it? This is the depth of the depravity. Is that how you put it? I'm very enraged by that. That's very frustrating.
It is. And I, as I said, I rang them up, apologised and said, look, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. They don't want to play.
Yeah. God damn it.
Not a cent from the Australian people.
Yeah, all this money. Oh, they can find all this money for this national debt that I'll be paying off for the rest of my life unless A1 gets in.
No, we'll fix the national debt. That's not a problem. That hand grenade, did you think that somebody's going to inherit?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Anyway, getting back to Andrew Robertson, I wanted to highlight a section of his interview with John Anderson.
Oh, terrific.
That got quite a few views, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Sure.
And it's actually quite enlightening, guys. It's very enlightening. I had a chat. I may have failed to mention this, but this is actually John Anderson's father-in-law. That's why it was such a close, and he was almost a mentor for John as well. And that's why it was such a close thing. And I got on the phone with John a couple of days ago as soon as I realised, and I passed my condolences on because I had so much respect for this man.
As a nation, and I know there are pockets of great poverty and so on, but as a nation we've become extremely wealthy, and as such we're now 25 million people. When we were 4.5 to 5 million, we took care of our defence. Now we're 25 million. We seem to think that we're all okay, that our distances are fine and there couldn't be a war and the trade will all solve all the issues and all these sorts of things. And we haven't taken responsibility for our own defence. We're 25 million people among the wealthiest little countries in the world. We are surrounded by a large moat, but we've got to make sure that that moat, the island structures are all in our general area, that we help, we become great friends to, and that we can defend our own neck of the woods. And this requires fundamentally naval and air power, but it also requires a strong and mobile and highly effective army. And that's the ADF as a whole. But we have to wake up while there's still time.
As you say, we are quite a wealthy country, but here's something that staggers people when I say it to them. Russia is seen as a global power. People are concerned about what Russia might do. They're aware that it's very powerful. The Australian economy is the same size as Russia's. no one sees us as a threat, and we don't want to be a threat. We simply want to be seen as people who will stand up for our values and play a constructive role if someone needs to enforce the peace. But it's an interesting point, isn't it, that we sometimes hear people say, oh, no, if anything nasty happens, we're not big enough to make a difference. When we were 4.5 million people, we were able to build a second-tier navy and be massively instrumental in the outcome of the First World War on the battlefields. We celebrate that every year. Even in the Second War, when we finally got our act together, we played a critical role in a couple of the major battles of the Second World War. Now, there seems no excuse for us in an age when we can't assume that the superpower of the day, once it was Britain, now it's America, will be fully able to support us if something goes wrong. Surely we ought to be able to step up and recognise our size, our wealth, and the desirability of standing for the freedoms that we think matter.
I think it was Rommel, who was the Desert Fox, a German general in the First World War, who said, if I was to take hell, I'd use the Australians to take it and the New Zealanders to hold it. You know, that was when we were 5 million people. And yet, no, we shouldn't have a memorial.
See, I like John Anderson, but that's why politicians are bad wartime leaders. He wants to be with his mate. What was the form of words he used? We don't want to see him a threat. Yes, we are supposed to be seen as a threat. That's exactly how you negotiate. Once again, grow up, kids. Negotiations between countries aren't done because it's in our mutual benefit. Negotiations are done because if you don't do business, you're going to lose. That's the real world.
Yeah.
This nonsense, we want to be seen as everyone's mate. Grow up, for God's sake. We need, and this is, you can check out A1 policy. We are at war. Point number one, we're already at war. China has won.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
So to pretend that we're not at war and time's running out, time ran out some time ago. You're about to be forcibly injected with vaccines made in China. Congratulations, or made somewhere else.
That's right.
We have no capacity to produce our own vaccines. We have no capacity to produce our own military equipment. Our policy is to have 3 major primes producing military equipment for us. Our policy is to have our own design and manufacture of computer chips, because it's the equivalent of having gunpowder when the others didn't.
Yeah.
That's the power of the chip. It's our policy to have sea, air and special operations forces, space forces. We're going to have long-range capabilities and expeditionary capabilities so we can fly in, sail in, march in if we need to, do a job and get out. Nation building is out. Winning wars and killing bad guys is back in vogue. So the gay bar loiterers that are currently running the Defence Force will be out of a job very, very quickly, because we cannot afford to be undefended. For the first time in our history, we will, under an A1 government, be capable of defending ourselves independent of our neighbours, independent of the superpowers.
Yeah.
We have to stand up on our own 2 feet and act like grown-ups instead of saying, Daddy, can you come and help me, please?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but that moment has passed.
Yeah.
We need to be intimidating militarily.
That's right.
So people treat us with respect, because that's all they understand. And once again, at the risk of repeating myself, if you take the Christian bit out of our Western democracy, the turn the other cheek and act of grace doesn't exist in the other religions. You take a step back, they take a step forward.
That's right.
I believe in a very muscular Christianity. Let's put it that way. And so, no, love John Anderson, that's fantastic, but he's so bloody wrong. We are not everybody's best mate, and that's why we've got China buying every freaking politician they can buy. That's why they've taken over Papua New Guinea, and I was there in 90 to 91, and the Chinese were in there buying up everything, and they're still doing it now.
Yeah.
And the Australian imbeciles would send their $300 million of untied aid to PNG.
Yeah.
And that just went walkabout.
Yeah.
We got the island chain being bought up by China. We are at war. We have corrupted and treasonous politicians selling us out at every moment.
Yeah.
We are at war. We have lost. It's time to fight back.
Yeah.
We are actually on the back foot. We have lost. So to say we have to be ready for China, grow up. And this applies to Hastie and Molan and the other cowards in Canberra that will not speak. And they are, whatever they once were as officers, brave men, I don't doubt. But now you're nothing but cowards, because you won't speak, you hedge, you pretend. It's almost like you took an oath to somebody else or to something else to conceal and never reveal. No, we have lost the war. They're just going to roll the military in after the fact.
Yeah.
They've done it economically.
Yeah. And
no.
And in John's defence, I just want to make the point, this is a 2 year ago conversation, early 2019. I'd be very curious to hear what he's saying now. And I have had chats with John, and I don't reveal my private conversations.
No, and don't expect you to, but bloody politicians is all I can say.
No, absolutely. I totally agree.
Bloody politicians.
Maybe it is out of time. Maybe there was time.
No, 2 years ago it was too late.
Yeah.
It's not like the world changed dramatically in the last 2 years. China has bought and paid for every politician for decades.
Yeah.
And I've said it before, say it again, the new international economic order, implications for Australia, Senate Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defence, February 1980, did the report. Every Prime Minister, every Leader of the Opposition, every Senator and every member of the House of Representatives from all four major parties, Liberal, Labor, Nationals and Greens, have systematically betrayed us and sold us out to just about everybody. So this is not 2 years, it's just happened. Bullshit. This has been happening for decades. And if they don't know, then they're imbeciles. And if they did know, then they're traitors. It's really straightforward, folks. I don't care how freaking polite you are. But this is treason.
Fourth and fifth generational warfare, that's what we're looking at, guys. If you're not sure what that is, look it up, because what China's been doing, I have to take my hat off to them. They've done a phenomenal job, and they've been aided and abetted by our own government, and it's amazing.
And once again, China is not the power. China is the means by which the globe will be controlled. It is a system, as I've explained once before, and I showed you the evidence. China was created by the deep state after World War, the US deep state after World War II. They disarmed Chiang Kai-shek and the Democratic Chinese. They made sure that Mao Zedong was armed, and Chiang Kai-shek got punted off to Taiwan. They created it. They needed it. And now they've decided this is the model by which the planet will be run. So Xi Jinping isn't some universally powerful individual. He's on a string. He's a marionette puppet like everybody else. That's just the means by which the globalists will take control of this country, and nothing will stop them except us.
Yeah.
And by us, I do not mean the ADF, because the ADF right now is utterly incapable.
Oh, God.
It's led by cowards and imbeciles, and the poor diggers at the bottom end of it, they're stuck. No, the whole place needs a revamp. Yeah. The ADF from top to bottom needs to be cleaned out and resorted. Yeah. And the Australian people have to stand up and start demanding better from everybody.
Yeah. And I know the analytics bear this out, because, guys, I see all the analytics on these videos. Every time you talk about the ADF, it does extraordinarily well. When I say well, I mean hundreds of thousands of views each video that you do on the ADF, and I distribute. It's crazy.
Now imagine, that's because I know the ADF and I can dive in with detail. Now imagine if I had a legal background and I could dive into legal detail. Yeah. Imagine if I was, a bureaucrat, I could dive into the administrative detail.
Yeah.
Imagine if I was a doctor, I could dive in. Imagine if I was, fill in the blank. Yeah. In fact, I'll give you one. You remember the live sheep export debacle where we had to shut down the live export trade because of the horrendous result of Australian live exports and how bad it was. Well, I was contacted by one of the vets that actually looks after the beasts on the ships.
Yeah.
And I said, right, tell me what your experience is. He said, not a problem, I'll tell you. Here's the truth of it. Australia demands the highest, and this is not the government, the controlling organisation demands the highest standards for the entire chain, from the farm travelling to the ship, on the ship, and then the slaughterhouses around the world. Now, the reason that's important is because the animals are treated well up to slaughter. It's critical. Now, the fact that they wanted to shut down our live exports was completely unnecessary. The entire industry was shattered, courtesy of imbecilic politicians, but I repeat myself. Now, if we shut down our trade, guess what happens? The slaughterhouses around the world will go back to the barbaric halal, cut their throat in the street and let them bleed out. What we demand, this is Australia, not the government. Once again, don't let the police take the credit for this. This is by the industry to make sure they did hit longevity. They made sure the animals are stunned before they're killed. So it's humane. No, you take Australia out of this live export business, then you've got millions of animals being killed in Middle Eastern countries and elsewhere in the most brutal way, particularly for the halal market.
Well done.
So well done. Now, how did they get the industry shut down? Well, the police wanted it. They just needed an excuse. But there was a group that paid the Pakistani or whatever they were, the Bangladeshi people on board who were paid to look after the sheep. They offered them $35,000. Now think about how much that means to some packy that's sitting on a ship guarding sheep.
Wow.
Right, we'll give you $35,000 if you can give us vision of animals being maltreated.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They hosed them down. Now what do you do when you hose down a bunch of sheep in close confinement and you don't muck out the feces? And then within a short period of time, they created the disaster, and this is the allegation. They created the disaster, filmed it, and shut down the industry. Now, there was an alleged investigation, which I don't believe in a second was honest, but there was an investigation, and this animal welfare group, was allegedly exonerated. I think it was a complete stitch-up. They provided the incentive. The drama was fabricated by the Pakistani sailors who were looking after the sheep. The film got sent back. The industry was shut down in seconds. No need. Now, that's just because I spoke to a vet. Now, as I said, getting back to the point, if you speak to any particular profession, that they can dive into the detail, as I said, once the depth of the depravity of treasonous behaviour and seditious behaviour is revealed to the Australian people, I'm going to look like a bloody moderate.
Yeah.
I'll have to hold them back. It'll be like, Mel Gibson in Braveheart, hold, because there's going to be a revolution, and I won't be starting it. It'll be the logical consequence of bloody politicians doing what they've been doing for decades.
Yeah. Part of me thinks not even Trump could have held back what some of the protesters wanted to do in Congress.
They were fine. No, I reckon the Trump supporters, they're law and order types. You ever seen a Trump rally? They actually pick up their own rubbish when they leave. The place is pristine. The left have a rally and there's crap everywhere.
Climate change rally.
So the fact that Trump supporters storm Congress, give me a break, grow up.
Yeah.
At no point ever has a Trump rally descended into violence, ever in 4 years.
That's right.
Not once.
And don't say Charlottesville. That was not a Trump rally. That was not.
Stop believing these imbeciles on TV, please, folks. For God's sake, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
On that topic, in the last 24 hours, I've had a police officer reach out to me, a whistleblower. We will be meeting with them. This is the first you're hearing of it. We will meet with them this week.
Before, terrific.
Before we can't. And we're going to get... I forgot the name of this phenomenon, but you're absolutely right. When a specialist in an area knows their area and they see what's going on, they can call it out. But when they see stuff not in the area, so if it's a vet who's looking at what's going on in the butcher industry, they know what's going on. Whereas if it's a police officer and the vet's reading in the newspaper what's happening with the police officer, they can't tell what's going on. They just think, I trust the media.
Well, there's a message. If we're meeting this copper, brilliant, can't wait. Everybody else, if you've got a story to tell, please do. Yeah, contact Joel, let him know.
And I know it's hard to get a hold of us, guys, but if you're going to text, well, at least I know with me, if you're going to message me on Facebook or whatever, I do read a lot of them, but a lot of them I don't act on because it's like you say hi and that's it. I won't start the conversation or continue if it's just hi. If you say hi, Joel, and then you lay out what's going on and there's an actionable thing there, I'll read it most likely and I'll take you up on it. But the problem is I can't have the situation where I'm texting 10,000 people. It's not going to work. And that's why I keep my private phone numbers so guarded. But we are trying to fight for you. And as we saw with Love Crepes this week, when Romeo George's, someone reached out to him, we were more than happy to help this guy who Channel 9 and Channel 7 viciously reported on. Even though they didn't get a comment from him, they still ran the story.
And the coppers were good.
Yeah, they were good. If you watch it, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it from last night, the coppers were good, weren't they?
They were trying to help make sure he was okay. He wasn't being mobbed.
Yeah.
And we've got to remember this, folks. Don't let the politicians in their tricks put a wedge between you and the cops. Now, I understand there's always a small group of bad apples in every barrel. Got it.
Of course.
But by and large, I've got to tell you, the cops are on our side. They really are.
Yeah.
There are more good cops than bad. That goes without saying. Most of the guys and girls are in a tough spot. They're in a really bad spot, and I get it. So support the cops. If you protest or whatever, be polite, do the righty. They'll let you have your say. Let them do their bit. Don't fight the cops. Let them do what they need to do, okay? Yeah. And you do what you do. Don't let the pollies drive a wedge between us and the police, because I can tell you when things go sour, who are you going to call? Scott Morrison?
Scotty.
No, you'll dial 000 and you'll be grateful when you see those blue and red lights turn up.
Yeah.
And someone's there to give you a hand.
You're not going to call Slow-Mo. He's
Slow-Mo.
I love that name so much.
Slow-Mo.
It was I came up with the name, guys, but I got it from talking to a relative in my family. They were talking about Scott Morrison, and She was just saying, talking in the workplace, and she was just like, he's just, slow. And I was like, slow-mo, picking up on his other nickname, ScoMo. But
which originated out of his office.
Exactly.
He's Mr. Marketing, allegedly. Well, sorry, mate, but you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
That's it. Yeah. Good old Scotty. Let's call it there, guys. I get it. This has been a crazy week. I get it. A lot of people are feeling down about what's happening. Well, as Riccardo said, this is the time for the real men to be separated from the sheep. And if you are a sheep, it's a great time for growth. So it all depends on your mindset and what you do with that. And this book actually helps with that. I can't wait to see the numbers on this, how many people have been buying this book. But from what I hear, it's still very hard to acquire, sold out, and the second reprint's on the way. So be patient, guys. And a second book's on the way, which will be great.
Correct.
So I'll make sure I send my complaints to the publisher to not not publish it. But no, look. We are praying for America, for the country, that they do come through this. There are significant, if Biden is to come through with this, there are significant, and for the record, I think that's, if I were to put $1,000 down, I'd say that's what's probably going to happen. Even if Riccardo's probably like, nope, it's not going to happen. If that happens, there are going to be significant structural changes. We know that for a certainty if it were to happen. They are going to add more states. They are going to stack the courts. They're going to try and get rid of the right to free speech. They're going to bring in hate speech laws. They're going to bring in... And I'm going to play this video back to people because they think I'm an idiot. They think I don't know what's going on. And then I replay these videos and it's like, okay, he was right. Internet's going to be cracked down as well. We're going to have more wars. We're going to have... a very interesting situation with what happens with free speech. They're going to take away the Americans' guns or restrict them. So 2022, if that's the case, is going to be a landslide. They're going to lose the Senate. They're going to lose the House because the Democrat seats up for grabs are vulnerable seats. Also, whoever comes in 2024, even if they remove Trump from office, and this is a big one, if they have time for this, they've only got 8 working days left, 12 days in total. If they remove Trump from office and he can't run again, which is a big call if they would manage to find the time to do it, because they have the numbers, if they do, then I can't see how they take away Trump's power on who he endorses, because the Trump supporters, they don't like the Republicans. In fact, they hate him even more after this.
I'll play you a game. Let's say all of what you say is true, and I can see several reasons why it's not going to happen, but let's say it does. You think Trump's going to endorse somebody else? You don't know Don.
Now, hang on. If he can't run again, he's going to run again even if he gets impeached.
Oh, watch this space. Do you think he hasn't got a mountain of stuff that all these people that voted on him?
Yeah.
Gitmo. It's the new Trump Tower.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
No, but hang on a second. I'm saying if he gets removed from office, I think if he doesn't get removed from office,
if he gets removed from office, no, that'll be overturned.
You think it'll be overturned?
Absolutely.
He will run anyway, and he will win legally.
The restriction on him not being able to run again will be overturned.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, and he will run again, and he will be the president again.
All right. Well, again, I don't think so. But the point is the MAGA movement goes on because it's not done yet. They haven't made America great again properly. They've got to do it properly. And they did a phenomenal job, and you outlaid some of the reasons. But this is not going away. No. And for those of you that
and neither is Don.
And neither is Don, and neither is the Ark. We're not going anywhere. We're right here. This is the first show of the year. I'm not going anywhere. I just started this thing. And as we saw from the business owner of Love Crepes, he's not going to Channel 9. He's not going to Channel 7 because he doesn't trust them.
Go to Channel Joel.
Go to Channel Joel. Someone gave me a great idea. I should call it the Ark Network or the Ark organization or whatever, media or organization, something like that. I'm working on it.
International media conglomerate.
International media conglomerate. That's it. But look, there are great voices out there. I know I keep saying Monica Smith. People are going to probably think I'm dating her by this point. I'm not dating her. I just think she's doing a phenomenal job in Victoria. She's also going to cover Love Crepe eventually as well. Once this interview comes out with him. Because there is good people out there, and they will stand up, and they are standing up. And you guys, I can't wait to show you the footage on Sunday or when Love Crepe opens up of that happening. But I will let you know if Love Crepe's opening on Sunday. But Riccardo, Thank you for your words of encouragement in a time when people are losing hope. And thank you for offering a path forward.
Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.